Wiregrass Daily News Sports. This is your daily look at sports in the Wiregrass and the Southeast. Dothan Wolves on 96.9. The Legend producer Phillip Jordan breaks the news, covers the games, and talks to experts in the Wiregrass and Southeast. And now, Phillip Jordan.
What's up, everybody? Happy Monday to you. I am Phillip Jordan, in-studio host and producer of Dothan Wolves Football on 96.9 The Legend. You're listening and watching Wiregrass Daily News Sports. We have a great show planned for you guys today. I say that every time, but they're always great. They're always great. They're always fun. We're talking sports, the stuff we like to talk about, like to get around the water cooler and discuss with our friends, coworkers, family, enemies, whoever. But we have a fun show for today. I am going to be joined by Ashford head coach David Stapleton. Ashford's coming off a 50-44 win on their homecoming game this past Friday night against Delville. So we'll talk with him. Good 16-minute phone conversation in that one. And then we'll jump into college football, what happened over the weekend. We'll do a little bit different what we've been doing the last couple of weeks. It won't just be me. Another friend of mine that covers and writes about college football, Brandon Eisenman, will be joining me. This will be a regular occurrence on the Monday show. We'll do some weekend observations. We'll talk about college football. We'll talk about Alabama, Troy, and Florida State. Auburn was off. We'll also look around the SEC, and we'll also dive into the Braves, losing 3-0 to the Phillies in Game 1 of the NLDS. So a lot of fun stuff to talk about here on the show. But before I play my interview with Coach David Stapleton, before I bring Brandon on to recap college football and the Atlanta Braves, we need to do something that we always did on the Wiregrass High School Football Report. We must do this. We have to do this. Let's go around the Wiregrass. All right, we're going to start off in 7A Region 2. We're going to mix in some Thursday night games too as well, going over what happened all around the Wiregrass in high school football this past Friday. And we start off in 7A Region 2. Central defeated Dothan 48-14. Of course, this was a game you would have heard on 96.9 The Legend. Central goes to 6-0. Best team in 7A right now, you ask me, without a doubt. Dothan falls to 5-2. They had the Auburn loss earlier. Dothan scored first. They got a Keavion Dury interception, and then Tamarian Peterson put it in for the touchdown. But then Central went on 48 unanswered points, and the Peterson did score when there 2 minutes left. But Dothan will have a big game against the next team we're going to talk about, Enterprise. Enterprise defeated Prattville 49-17 to go to 5-1 on the year. Multiple touchdowns in the game for running back Amari Griffin. Jumping into 5A Region 2, upset here. Rehoboth defeated Charles Henderson 30-27. Both teams are at 3-3 now. For Rehoboth, Terrell Townsend, 143 yards and 3 touchdowns. Rehoboth did have a 18-3 lead at halftime, so Charles Henderson did storm back in the second half, but could not take the lead. For Charles Henderson, quarterback Parker Adams had 237 yards and 2 touchdowns. A classic in Ozark on Friday night between Eufaula and Carroll. Eufaula defeated Carroll 38-37 to get to 5-2 on the year. Carroll drops to 3-3. Carroll had an extra point blocked with 1:06. That would have tied the game, potentially went to overtime. Keyshawn Cole had connected with Quadarius Leitner. What they were thinking was potential game-tying touchdown. And then Enterprise quarterback Browning Anderson was 17-25, 369 yards, and 4 touchdowns. Headland defeated Greenville 36-12 to get to 5-1. Big rushing performance in this one. They had 234 yards. And on defense, Kendall Corbett had 10 tackles in the game. Now let's jump over into 4A Region 2. Dale County defeated Slocum 60-30 to go to 2-5. Slocum is 1-5. For Dale County, Tristan Smith had 315 yards and 7 touchdowns total, receiving and rushing for yardage and touchdowns there. And Andalusia defeated Geneva 40-13 to go to 7-0 on the year. Geneva is 2-5. 3A Region 2, Providence defeated Northside Methodist 19-10. For Providence, they are now 4-2, and Northside is now 2-4. Strawn defeated Houston Academy 35-21. That is Houston Academy's first loss of the year. Lane Grantham had 1 passing touchdown and 2 rushing touchdowns for Strawn in that one. Not going to go into much detail. We're about to have Coach on, but Ashford, like I said off the top, defeated Daleville 50-44 to go to 3-4 on the year. Daleville is 2-5. And Pike County defeated New Brockton 35-21 to go to 3-3. New Brockton's 1-5. The game was tied at halftime at 14. Pike County was out without 10 players due to suspension because of the fight that happened with Headland last week. For Pike County, Amari Burrow was 7 of 13 for 158 yards, 2 touchdowns, and he had 1 rushing touchdown as well. In 2A Region 2, a Thursday final, GW Long defeated Zion Chapel 36-20. GW Long is 5-1. Zion Chapel is 3-4. This is the 5th straight win for GW Long. Bryson Hughes had 114 yards passing and 204 on the ground. Cottonwood defeated Ayrton 43-7. We had Coach Harrison on the show last week. To go to 5-0, Ayrton is 3-4. King Campbell had 270 yards rushing with 2 touchdowns. He also on defense had an interception, and in the game he had a 97-yard touchdown. Witzburg defeated Geneva County 42. Let's see how. Yes, 42-6. Sorry, I did not. I had to pay for people watching, and we'll completely go behind the scenes here. I had the score up on the screen, but on my paper, I didn't have it. But Witzburg defeated Geneva County 42-6. They go to 3-3, and then that puts Geneva County at 0-6. Mason Burkhart had 3 touchdowns, 2 rushing, 1 passing for 110 yards, and he was 14-21 in the game. Sampson defeated Abbeville 34-16 to get to 1-5. Abbeville is 1-6. Brody Mixon was 143 yards rushing on the ground, and he also had 1 receiving touchdown. He had 11 tackles, a forced fumble, and he picked up a fumble and ran it 56 yards. In 2A Region 3, Goshen defeated Barber County 41-0 to go to 5-2. Barber County is 1-5. Jamari McClure, 205 yards and 3 touchdowns. In 1A Region 2 on Thursday night, Kinston defeated Pleasant Home 52-7. He had 2-4. And then Colby 2 had 220 yards rushing in the game and 3 touchdowns. On Friday night, Elwood defeated Red Level 56-14. Alvin Henderson had 191 yards on just 4 attempts and 3 touchdowns. It was 35-0 within the first 8 minutes of the game. Thorala defeated Houston County 24-14 to get to 5-1. Houston County is 2-5. Georgiana shut out Brantley 26-0 to go to 6-1. Brantley falls to 3-4. Georgiana and Elba will be playing this upcoming Friday. And then Independent, Pike Liberal Arts lost 14-19 to Lighthouse PCA out of Georgia. And then AISA, Chambers Academy defeated Abbeville 64-0. Abbeville Christian, that is, to get them at 1-6 on the season. So that is around the Wiregrass. Now, I'm going to play my conversation with Ashford head coach David Stapleton. Remember, this is just a phone conversation for people watching on YouTube. My guest today on Wiregrass Daily News Sports is Ashford head coach David Stapleton. They're coming off a 50-44 homecoming win over Daleville on this past Friday night. And Coach Stapleton, congrats on the win. And I appreciate you coming on the show and talking to it about it with us today.
Yes, sir. Yeah, Philip, thanks for having me again, and I appreciate you reaching back out, and appreciate your congratulations. So, thanks again.
Just over the game, a 50-44 game. I know it was a little back and forth, a lot of points there. Obviously, just overall, your thoughts coming away from Friday night's game.
Yeah, it was a good team win for us. Just from the standpoint, we haven't put up that many points all season, and we haven't really necessarily struggled on offense. It's just been a lot of times we've gotten in the red zone and struggled to punch it in, or it wasn't even like a turnover thing. We actually had our first 2 fumbles on Friday night of the season, so it was just about finishing drives and just finding ways to move the football and run the football effectively, which, going back and looking, I think we had like 390 yards rushing. And so, we did a lot of good things on that side of the ball. And thankfully, because Daleville's got a heck of a quarterback, and they had a good offensive game plan, and they scored a bunch of points too. And we actually had a few kids out. One of those being our starting quarterback, Will Hart, and then we had to ask a sophomore to play Friday night, and he did a heck of a job. So we relied on some other kids to step up and make plays for us, and they did. And so, like I said, it was a good team win, and we had two starting linebackers out, we had a starting receiver out, and then, like I said, our quarterback. So, with it being homecoming too, sometimes you worry about these kids and where their heads at, and they're more worried about the dance and those kind of distractions. So I was just overall thankful that we got the win, and now that we're 3-4 and we got a chance to just keep rolling and win out. So, and then we'll go from there.
And reading up and looking at, what happened during the game on Friday night, that late fumble recovery kind of sealed the deal. Just to break that down, what happened there when you guys were able to get the ball back?
Yeah, and like I said, Delville had a good game plan, and they got a heck of a player. I think he's the best player we've seen all year on any team we faced. I think he's single-handedly the best player I've coached against since I've been in Ashford. So he's a special talent. But, we were up 44-28 with 4 minutes left. So we're up 16 points, and, we just couldn't put them away. And, then that's that just goes to show how hard they fight at Delville. And I think Coach Garner's done a good job with his kids. And I knew, and the kids knew they were going to play for 4 quarters, but we just couldn't put them away. And they scored on a reverse pass, and then they kicked an onside kick and got it, that type deal. And so there was like a little over a minute left, and they were actually driving and got down inside the 10-yard line and fumbled, and our kids got on it. So, and then the week before we played Slocum, we had to stop Slocum on a 2-point conversion try to win that game. So, the past 2 weeks have been some exciting games, but at the same time, I'm sitting here thinking my kids are just trying to give me a heart attack. So, I'm proud of them, though. Winning doesn't come easy. There's a lot that goes into it, especially with us. We've won 3 games this season, but the past 3 years, they'd only won 4 games. So we're making progress. It's just like 1 week at a time. We're just trying to take it 1 game at a time. And, I think we played some really good teams on the front end of our schedule that's, kind of helped us figure ourselves out. And so I think we're getting hot at a good time, and we still have a chance to make the playoffs. And like I said, we just got to take care of our business and just keep winning. So,
you talked about Delville quarterback, Marion Pinckney, and every week I do this because I do it on the show. I go over all the scores and I look at the stats. And his name's always there. Putting up numbers. What was the challenge with him, like going into the game, like you knew you had to do to defend him?
Yeah, I just think a kid like that, you preach it to your kids all week about how good of a player he is, and you show them the film, and the kids know about him too, and the kids respect him. And it's like you go into the game and you know that he's the key, right? Like he's the guy, and he makes the engine run and that type deal. And they do a good job of putting him in position to make those plays. And it's coming, and he still finds a way to make it happen. And we did some things too on defense that was kind of out of character for us. And my thing is like, when you got a player like that you're playing against, if you do some things that are out of character, or you miss an assignment, or you're a force player and you're not keeping your outside arm free, that type deal, he's going to make you pay for it. Like he's going to make you pay. So, you've got to be sound playing a kid like that. He's a special talent. I don't know, who's recruiting him, or if he's getting recruited, or, kind of what his deal is, but he's definitely a special player. One of the more special players I've seen since I've been coaching high school football. He's just a fun player to watch. I mean, he's a pain in the tail to coach against for sure. But, he's definitely a special talent. And, I was just glad that we were able to stop him enough times to get the win. So.
Yeah, one of the times you say, I'm glad we don't have to play him again. That's it for this season.
Yeah, no, it's not fun. It ain't fun trying to play him. So.
It's all about your quarterback. Obviously, backup quarterback getting the start. A.J. Lewis had a big game, 8 yards scored. They put you guys up 50-36, the final touchdown for you guys. But then he had some scores there in the first half on the ground and through the air. Just talk about his performance coming in for the injured Will Hart.
Yeah, AJ, and he just turned 15 not too long ago. So he's actually one of the younger kids in his sophomore class, and he can't even drive yet. And he also plays middle linebacker for us. So he started at middle linebacker, and then he had to get to start at quarterback. And he's also on just about every special teams you can name. So, that's kind of rare for our team because we've got a decent amount of kids out to play. So we don't play a ton of kids both ways, but he plays just about every snap. And so, we asked a lot of him on Friday, and he's got all the ability. I think the whole time it's been about him just believing in himself, which can be hard for a kid he's that young. But his confidence has grown over the season. Like I said, he's been starting middle linebacker for us. And I think the more he's played, the more confidence he's gained. And he just looked very comfortable and poised at quarterback on Friday. I think he had 2 rushing touchdowns and 2 passing. And he just did a good job of just controlling the game and just being, like I said, he was very comfortable back there. He's a really good athlete. He played some running back for us earlier in the year, so he's good with his legs. And he's about 205 pounds and about 5'10", 5'11". So when he's running at you, it hurts, So I'm super proud of him and just proud of the kids that, that had to step up for us. A lot of them, at one point, we had 3 backs in the backfield, and all of them were sophomores. So we're extremely young. I think, you and I talked preseason about this, and, these kids are just doing a really good job of growing up. And they just got to learn how to finish football games. Like I said, we needed to finish a lot better than we did. There was no reason that, it should have been that stressful of a game. And, and then hats off to Delville for the fight and the want to. We got to learn how to finish football games. And I don't think we've matured in that way yet. I think, we're learning how to win, but learning how to finish and win, I think, are 2 different things. I mean, when you're up by 16, you need to finish. You got to finish the game right there. Don't sit there and make it harder on yourself than it needs to be. So we got to grow up in that aspect. But overall, I'm proud of our kids, and I'm always going to be proud when we win because winning's not an easy thing to do. So, I'm proud of them.
On the ground, you mentioned it, and I saw your tweet, too, that you put out about 390 yards rushing on Friday night. Jay Ragland, he had a big game. Just talk about his performance, too. He had a few touchdowns for Friday night.
Yeah, so that's another one of our sophomores, and he's, he had to play DN and linebacker on defense, and then he had to play more running back than he's played all season, and he had over 100 yards rushing and had some explosive runs. I think he had one of 40 yards. I think he had one of 26, a few touchdowns, and he's a load to tackle too. So he's a tough kid and a bruiser. And, I think our kids are just kind of like adopting that mentality. Like we've been calling it train track football is what we're saying. So like when people cross the tracks, they just need to know what they're coming into, and it's going to be hard nosed, tough, like blue collar football. And, that's just what we're going to be and who we're going to be. And, I think 390 yards on the ground kind of, is a good example of that. So, our kids are buying into that identity, and I'm proud of them for that, and just, adopting that mindset. So, because at the end of the day, they got to be the ones to go out there and do it. I mean, we can talk about it a whole lot, but, talk about it and doing it's 2 different things. But, they're kind of talking it and walking it. So we just got to keep that rolling. They got to stay humble, and we're thankful to have the win going into a bye week. So we got a bye week, and then we play New Brockton. So we got a couple kids that we got to get healthy, and like I said, just take it 1 week at a time, and we'll see what the playoff picture looks like when we're done. So.
Yeah, you mentioned that you're going into the off week, and then you got New Brockton coming up. And just what will the off week look like for you guys?
Yeah, it's gonna be a little lighter of a week. It's kind of different for me. It's a different situation than I've ever been in. It's it's our fall break. I talked to you about that before our interview started, and it's also our bye week. So we're going to get the kids in a few days, and we're going to practice, and we're going to watch film and do what we do. We're going to move our practices to the morning time, and instead of using it in the afternoon, just to give kids that time off, and just understanding that they need that break too. I think even for our coaches, we've met for 8 weeks in a row on Sunday, and we didn't meet today. So I just think it's a good week for everybody mentally to get back right, and and then for our kids mentally and physically, because you talk about fall camp and then going 7 straight weeks of football, and that's a lot of banging around and hitting and bumps and bruises and just things we got to get fixed. We got, like I said, we got 2 linebackers that are out, and both of them with shoulders, and a receiver with an ankle and a partial tear in his knee, and just things like that. That it's just part of football and part of playing, but they just got to get through this week and rest and hydrate, eat, sleep, all those things to be ready to go for New Brockton, which is another region game that we need to have. It's going to be our last home game and senior night, so we're going to want to send them off the right way, and we just still have a lot that we're playing for. So this week was big. It was big that we came in this week with a win, and I'm just thankful that we're at this point. I feel good about where our team's at.
Yeah, because keeping up with you guys, keeping up, like I do, keeping up with all the teams in Wiregrass, you won 2 in a row, and then I know, more victories, you're not there for it, but the 13-17 loss to Strong, that's the team at the top of the region right now. So you guys have been doing some really good things these last couple of weeks, and you talk about New Brockton. Have you watched film on them yet, and what kind of stands out with that team?
Yeah, a couple of teams we played New Brockton, so we've seen them. When you're sharing film and you get film on somebody you might be playing or whatever, but that film came from someone that already played another team, and so we've watched film on them, and our region is just kind of wild. New Brockton beat Op, but it's just one of those things. You can't take anyone light in our region at all, regardless of record or anything like that. They've gotten better. I know New Brockton's got numbers, and they got athletes on their team, and they're a program that's growing and getting better. And so I know they're going to play tough, and they're going to play 4 quarters. And I know they played Pike County tough. I think it was 14-14 at halftime of that game, and so they've got grit and fight, and they got enough players that can hurt you too. So their head coach is doing a good job. I know they went 0-10 last year, and so he's having to kind of do something similar to what we're doing in terms of rebuilding. And I know it's not easy. So like I said, we got major respect for them, and respect for really anybody in our region. Like I said, I don't think there's there's nobody in our region you can look at and say that's a win, or that's scratch it off. There's just not. I think if I'm being real, there's probably some regions in the state where you can look at a couple teams and you might say, well, we definitely should have this one this week. Well, you can't think like that in our 3A region 2. You just can't. So, we gave Strawn our best, and just Strawn's a really, really good football team, and we had major respect for them, and we fought them to the wire. We actually got back healthy that game, and the week before we were not against HA, and so like I said, I don't think you can't write anybody off in our region. I think that includes us, and so I think it's a good thing. I think it's good how competitive we are, and I'm just looking forward to playing them. So one of the former head coaches I worked for used to coach there, and so kind of familiar with the area, whatever, so I'll be looking forward to it.
Yeah, it should be a fun one, and look forward to the rest of the season for you guys. I think Ashford, you got them playing really well these last few weeks. I know you're looking forward to the off week. I know at this point in the season, if you get it this late season, it's probably a good thing when you get that off week and kind of get healed up, get healthy. But Coach, I appreciate you taking the time and coming on the show, and I hope we can chat again sometime.
Yes, sir. Yeah, Phillip, you can call me anytime, and I'll love to talk to you. So I appreciate what you do and appreciate you covering us.
All right. Once again, thanks to Coach Stapleton for coming on the show. I really think there's a great opportunity for Ashford to make a run at the playoffs. You got the off week this week. You got New Broughton this week. You got Northside Methodist coming up, and then you got Opp. Those teams are very similar. So I think there's a great opportunity for Ashford to potentially make a run at the postseason here in year one under Coach Stapleton. Well, we're going to transition into college football now. And I told you guys off the top, from now on, coming on the show, I'll have a little bit of help to go over some of these games from the weekend. And that is a good friend of mine. We've been doing pods together for a long time. That is Brandon Eisenman. He covers college football, SoFlo Bulls with South Florida. And he's had other experience covering Arkansas, LSU. He did a Florida podcast one time. This guy's been all over the map when it comes to different teams. Covered Florida State. So he's going to be joining me on these Monday episodes now. And yeah, here he is. Brandon Eisenman. If you're watching on YouTube on video, you see him there. Brandon was on the show a few weeks ago when we were still once a week recapping Alabama, South Florida. But Brandon, man, how was the weekend? And welcome in now, being kind of like my full-time college football partner here on the Monday editions of Wiregrass Daily News Sports.
Yeah. Philip, I'm glad to be doing this with you every week. It's always a good time when me and you get together and get to talk ball. The weekend was great. I went out of town, went to Jacksonville for my dad's birthday weekend, went and played some golf. We're not going to talk about how I did yesterday on Saturday. But other than that, football was good. It was good to get, out of Dothan for a day or two. But obviously I'm back home now and back to reality. But yeah, man, I'm glad to be here with you.
Question. Did you hit the golf ball better than the Braves hit the baseball on Saturday night?
No. No. Well, I take that back partially. I probably did.
Yeah,
but
we will get into the Atlanta Braves kind of like toward the end, because that's something we do here. We're going to talk about this is Wiregrass Daily News Sports. Maybe Brave fans do not want me to bring game one up, but we will do that here. And kind of like what we do here, we're going to talk about the main teams we cover first, the in-state teams and Florida State. Auburn did not play, so Auburn did not lose over the weekend. No lack of offense on this past weekend, but I figure we start with Alabama and Texas A&M. I think that's kind of like a good jumping off point, and Alabama wins this 26-20. Look, I think Texas A&M is very improved this year compared to what they were last year. This is their second loss, so this kind of knocks them out a lot of things. But Alabama did what they ought to, win 26-20. Alabama's got to clean not turnovers. They got to clean up the penalties, man. 14 penalties, 9 pre-snap penalties. Nick Saban was not happy. Like I said, you were on after the South Florida game when Alabama, struggled 17-3 with that game. I think Alabama has kind of found their identity since that, and obviously with Jalen Milroe, quarterback.
Yeah, I think they have. It's taken, I think a little bit longer into the season than, the Bama fans and obviously the players and the coaching staff would have liked it to. But going into this game, and I'll just be flat out and say it, man, I didn't have Bama winning 26-20. I had A&M winning by at least 2 touchdowns. Don't ask me why. I was rolling with it. I was thinking A&M's going to come out. They're going to be the better team. Alabama, as we know, they've struggled at various times throughout the season so far. But Bama was able to get it done. But like you said, Phillip, they've got to clean up the penalties, especially the pre-snap penalties. I mean, when they're playing teams like Tennessee and LSU and Auburn later in the season, they're definitely going to have that cleaned up by then.
Yeah, it's really been an issue for them, it seems, last few years. Now, Jalen Milroe had a really good game. 21-33, 321, 3 touchdowns. He had 1 interception. We'll talk about it in a second. He was sacked 5 times in the first half, 6 times overall. But we also got to look at this A&M defense. Man, last week against Arkansas, 7 sacks. The week before against Auburn, 7 sacks. 15 tackles for loss last week, too, also against Arkansas. So, I mean, this is, if not the best, one of the best defensive fronts in the SEC. So, I mean, they're going to get pressure. Alabama did not run the ball well at all. this game. So it was on Milroe. And, man, how about Jermaine Burton? 9 catches, 197 yards, and 2 touchdowns. But here to me was a big moment in the game that turned it. Open up the second half. Alabama down 17-10. I'm sure Alabama fans were worried because, oh, man, 2 losses are coming. No national title. This is probably the earliest since the first year where Saban would have 2 losses. But so they go down the field. They're moving the ball. 11:06 left in the third. Down 10-17, as I said. Milroe throws an interception. And you're like, oh, no. A&M's got it. They had momentum going into halftime. They could go up 2 touchdowns here, and Alabama, what they're going to do, because things were not looking good. The pass rush was getting a Milroe. There were some struggles for Alabama. But then Alabama comes back. They intercept Max Johnson, Caleb Downs. Alabama's tying it. They end up getting the lead. You know what happened, man? If Alabama doesn't get that interception with Caleb Downs and A&M goes up 24-10, it may turn out the way you thought it was with a 2-score win by A&M.
Yeah, that was definitely a key turning point for both teams, from both perspectives. You know, like you said, for Bama, you know, that kind of gave them that momentum shift that they needed, obviously, to go score and then, you know, end up with the win. And then for A&M, you know, it kind of killed their momentum a little bit because you're up at halftime on a team that if you beat them in this game, you give Bama their second loss in, you know, as early as it's been for a season in Nick Saban's tenure there. So there was a lot at stake there. It wasn't just, you know, beating, you know, I guess you could call it a rivalry game between Bama and A&M. It's not just beating, you know, a conference opponent. There's a lot more to it. And, you know, those interceptions definitely, you know, play a part in a win or a loss. But for Bama's sake, it helped them out a lot.
Yeah, it did. It did. So we'll see. They got Arkansas. That meant Arkansas is looking bad right now. I mean, they cannot protect. They lose to Ole Miss on Saturday night. They cannot, like I said, they cannot protect KJ Jefferson. They can't run the ball. Rocket Sanders has been back. So, man, and it's an 11 o'clock game. I think Alabama's about to get another win. And, man, we're kind of jumping in line, you know, the order that we were going to do things here. But I think Arkansas is looking at loss number 5 in a row.
Yeah, I'm in full agreement with that. There, you know, I kind of had, I'm not going to say high hopes for Arkansas, but, you know, I thought they could have been like a 9-3 team, somewhere around that mark, but definitely not. They're not good, and they're about to run into an Alabama team that has even more momentum than they did, you know, a week or two ago, now that they've finally found their identity, or at least it seems like they have. So if you're an Arkansas fan, you have to feel for what lies ahead.
Yeah, and I wonder, I think Sam Pittman's done a good job there. The first couple of years, his second year, they had the 9-win season, but then last year didn't go the way they probably expected. And then this year, the way it's going, I just kind of wonder the Heat would he be a candidate to lose his job? It's going to be interesting. Be 2-5 if they lose this one, like we're saying. Now Troy. Now we're not going to go along with this, but Troy dominated Arkansas State, 37-3. Look, we all know the recipe for Troy winning, right? Kamani Vidal gets 50+ yards. They're now 20-3. Man, he had 245 yards. Feed him the ball. That's the best part of your offense. 3 touchdowns. Gunnar Watson, I think he's been playing a lot better last few weeks. 12 for 21, 236, 1 touchdown. No interceptions for Gunnar Watson this week. Always a good step in the right direction. And the Troy defense was dominant. 5 overall sacks. Devon Solomon had 2 sacks overall, and then the team had 9 tackle for losses. I think Troy is kind of figuring some stuff out now. They started 1-2 once again. They got a couple wins in a row now. Now they will go and play Army on the road this Saturday, so out of Sunbelt. But look, Troy looks like they've kind of figured things out and kind of settled into what they are.
Yeah, they certainly have. And, you know, Arkansas State, I think, is a better team than what their record says they are. I mean, look, I know they got blown out in the opener 73-0, you know, at Oklahoma. But Troy's looked better over the last couple of weeks. And going into that game, I thought Arkansas State probably could have given Troy a run for their money when Troy was on offense, but Kamani Vidal would like to think otherwise, as he completely destroyed their defense with over 200 rushing yards. And look, when Watson and Vidal are both on top of their game, it seems like Troy just cannot be stopped on that side of the ball.
No, and then when you add in what they are defensively, I mean, everybody was wondering what they're going to be without Carlton Marshall. They're still one of the better defenses out there. And no receiver is I think an underlooked position they have right now. Deshaun Stoudemire was the go-to guy this Saturday, but man, Chris Lewis, I mean, throw it in his direction, he will go and get it one-handed probably. And then Jabri Barber has played really well for them. He was playing well last year before he got hurt, so Troy's got a solid receiving core there too as well. It doesn't get a lot of attention.
Yeah, certainly. Troy has playmakers and a ton of depth at receiver. And, it's kind of being overshadowed by Vidal and Watson and then the defense as well. But wide receiver is definitely a position of strength for Troy, and it's continuing to show every week.
They play Army. That's going to be tough. That was a tough game last year, playing them, the physical. They play a brand that you don't see. I mean, at least used to it at Sunbelt, you kind of were used to it playing Georgia Southern, but now with Helton there, they throw it all over the place now, so you're not playing that style against Georgia Southern anymore. But they'll be playing Army this Saturday. Florida State. And so they beat Virginia Tech 39-17. And I had Jeff Colhane on last week, and he talked about how this could be a close game. It was the start the second half. It was 22-17. Florida State pulled away. Here's the only thing for me that's a takeaway for Florida State. The run game had not been where I think it needed to be. And a lot of people talked about this. Going into this game, Trey Benson had 200 yards rushing and 2 touchdowns. It was a solid game for Jordan Travis, 18-24, 170, 2 touchdowns, zero interceptions. Not really having a lot asked of him in this game, but Florida State getting that run game going was big. But you know what? And Mike Norvell talked about this when they went into their off week. They're undefeated. They are yet to play a complete game from first quarter through the fourth quarter. They have yet to do that, but still they're 5-0.
Yeah, I mean, sure, they're undefeated, and their record and their ranking is going to obviously reflect that. But like you said, Florida State hasn't played a complete game from start to finish. If you go back to the Clemson game, they had to go to overtime. They were down by a touchdown or 2, I believe, in that game at one point in time. And then the Boston College game where they barely won. And then only being up 22-17 on Virginia Tech. I mean, if they keep, letting these conference opponents, kind of stay in the game with them, it could hurt them somewhere from now till the end of the season. So they're going to have to start playing, full 60-minute games from start to finish and try to find their identity as to where everybody, be the team that everybody thought they were going to be going into the season, because aside from the LSU game, I don't think we've really seen that yet.
Yeah. And even that game, LSU outplayed them in the first half. LSU just missed some opportunities to put points on the board in the red zone, but LSU outplayed them early. Which nobody has stopped LSU offense this year. Actually, Florida State's the closest team to stopping them, if you want to be fair. So, rest of college football, and I want to say this before we jump to the SEC. Brandon, I think the biggest loser on Saturday was Miami. Without a doubt. And I guess it is good you transition from Florida State to Miami, one of their biggest rivals. What are you doing, Mario Cristobal? I mean, if they take a knee, they win that game. And now you got a loss to Georgia Tech, and it kind of makes you think, okay, did Miami just revert back to last year's team? Tyler Van Dyke had, 3 turnovers in the game? I don't know. It's just a complete meltdown. I mean, that's one of the most boneheaded decisions I've seen a coach make. And there's got to be somebody upstairs saying, take a knee, coach, take a knee. But that didn't happen. I think, before we jump to the rest of this, I just think Miami is my biggest loser of the weekend.
Yeah, I would agree. That is one of the biggest mistakes any team could have made, regardless of if it's Miami, Alabama, whoever the case may be. But for Miami's sake, you got to take the knee. You can't lose to a Georgia Tech team that I think coming in they were 2-4, I think, and they lost to Bowling Green, I believe, a week or two before this game against Miami. So there's no reason, number one, that Georgia Tech should have been in this game, and number two, Miami should not have lost, but ultimately they did. I don't think they're back. I don't think they were. Look, I mean, obviously they might have been, trending towards that point, but we all knew at some point they were going to slip up and have something like this just out of nowhere happen.
Yeah, you talk about teams being back, and I think a lot of people are going to look at what happened between Oklahoma and Texas yesterday, on Saturday. Texas is not bad. I think Oklahoma's good. I think that's number one. Texas turned the ball over. Quinn Ewers had that interception on the opening possession. That was his fault. Didn't see the guy. He threw it to the wrong guy. Both two receivers running slants. He should have went the other direction with it. The other interception, tip pass. Now, he did have a fumble in there, too, and then they had an opportunity on the one. They couldn't get in the second half. I feel like these two teams are going to play again. I think these are the best two teams in the Big 12. Of course, these are two future SEC teams. I look at it this way, and a lot of people say, well, Texas is out of the playoff hunt, too. So, no, if you beat Oklahoma in the Big 12 championship game, you pretty much eliminate that loss from earlier because then you say, hey, we beat everybody we played. But that's one there. I think we look at Texas and we look at Miami as two different deals. What about you? Are you off the Texas thing now, or are you kind of like with me, like, okay, they had a bad performance. They barely lost. They're probably going to see Oklahoma again.
Yeah, I'm in agreement with you. I think Oklahoma and Texas are clear-cut the two best teams in the Big 12. And since they don't have divisions, the top two teams in the conference play in, the conference championship. So I think it'll be Texas and Oklahoma in that conference championship game. And if Texas does win, they could pave their way back to the playoff. But also looking at it from a different standpoint, what if Oklahoma falls off the rails and loses 2 games before then, or 3 games, and then that rebound win for Texas, that revenge win, won't look as good? Could that keep them out, even if they do finish 11-1 and then 12-1 with a Big 12 title win over the team that beat them?
I think a lot of that just depends on what else goes on around the country. But if it's a one of them deals where you got to beat Oklahoma, it may turn into, okay, you got lost by 4. You may need to win by like 10 or 14 or something like that. Be impressive with the way you do it. Team that wasn't impressive was Kentucky. And here's an issue I have. I don't want to spend a lot of time on this Georgia-Kentucky game. Georgia dominated. I mean, Georgia flexed their muscle. They're the number one team in the country. They showed why on Saturday night. But I'm tired of Georgia and Kentucky being treated like this big national game that it should be. Kentucky never plays well against Georgia. Kentucky has hit their ceiling. They can get to 9 or 10 wins, but that's its best. That's the best they're going to do. They're never going to beat Georgia as they're, constructed right now. They're never going to get past that. But every year, especially when Kentucky starts off good like they did this year, we're ready to anoint this team. Okay, this could be the year they beat Georgia, and then they get beat 51-13. They shot themselves in the foot multiple times with penalties. The defense could not stop Georgia. Carson Beck was on his game on this evening. He was 28-35 for 389 yards and 4 touchdowns. Brock Bowers, once again, was the man. 7 catches, 132, 1 touchdown. Get that man in Heisman consideration. But it's just Kentucky's good, but they're just not on the same playing field as Georgia.
Yeah, definitely not. But Philip, I know you just said you're tired of, people hyping up Kentucky and Georgia every year, but I kind of see it from both sides here. So if you look at Kentucky's schedule prior to the Georgia game, the only decent team they played was Florida. And if that's their marquee win of the season so far, to go in and, play Georgia and be competitive, that's something. They need better competition, but also at the same time, I see it as what Mark Stoops is continuing to build in Lexington is eventually going to get Kentucky over the hump and beat Georgia, win the East, at least get to Atlanta. Now, also, I know you said that Kentucky's ceiling is like 9 or 10 wins. If they can get back on track immediately, they might finish with 11 wins. I doubt it because they still got to play Missouri and Tennessee. But I'm just saying the possibility is still there. But them beating Georgia and taking control of the East for once, is still obviously not going to happen. Georgia's just too good. Brock Bowers is unstoppable. Carson Beck is a better quarterback than I thought he was, and it's like every week that I watch Georgia play, they just get better and better. When 2 or 3 weeks ago, I was telling people that Georgia's not really all that good looking, but here we are. They're still undefeated.
Yeah, we'll see. They have Vanderbilt this Saturday, so cakewalk week for Georgia. Two more things, and we're going to get out of here for today. LSU and Missouri. I went into this game. Me and Matt Lowe predicted that this was going to be a high-scoring game, kind of like the LSU Ole Miss game. It's proven that LSU can't stop anybody. There's no excuse for it, in my opinion. I think LSU's got too many good defensive players. I thought the secondary was an issue coming into the year, but they got too many good players on their front seven to be this bad defensively. But, man, Jaden Daniels, this man should be in the Heisman conversation. He put on a Superman cape Saturday. He did against Ole Miss. It's just LSU's defense is their kryptonite. Jay Daniels should be a Heisman guy. Man, they scored 17 points in the fourth quarter. Man, he got hurt at one point in this game. Comes back in, just does all he needs to do. I mean, here's what he did in the fourth quarter. He had a 35-yard run to get him within, put him up 35-32. Then Missouri goes back up, and then he finds Malik Neighbors for 29 yards. And then, of course, we know Major Burns capped it off with the pick six. And look, Brady Cook could not throw an interception for this game since last year against Vanderbilt in mid-October. Just saying. It's a good performance. At least one defensive player made a play. Your thoughts on LSU, man? I know it's a team you've covered in the past. I think Jaden Daniels should be up for the Heisman. I still think they can press Alabama because their offense is just so good at what they have at receiver. But, man, the defense is just letting them down.
Phillip, look, everybody knows I'm a lifelong LSU fan. And, yes, the win is good. It's good for Brian Kelly and the program to, finally get back on track. But at the same time, the defense is still atrocious. I get it. I really do. Missouri was ranked. They could put up points. That's fine. Same thing the past week with Ole Miss. They're ranked. They're going to put up points, but you don't give up 700 yards. There's no way that should happen. I think you're right, Phillip. LSU's offense is a lot of fun to watch, but this team is being held back by the defense. They've already had, 2 or 3 losses? 3?
They're at 2 right now.
Yeah, 2. Well, I'm sure the third one's coming the first weekend in November. But listen, going into the year, I thought LSU was going to be something special. I thought they were going to repeat and win the West. But it doesn't seem like it's going to happen. And if the defense doesn't turn it around very quickly, Matt House is out the door either before the regular season is over or right after. I think LSU has to make changes on that defensive side of the ball, on that staff. But the offense is playing fine. Jaden Daniels is a very, very solid quarterback that, should be in the Heisman conversation. But with a team like this, when you've already got 2 losses and we're not even in the middle of October, that's just not going to be a reality for him this year.
Yeah, and I would have told Matt House, I'm like, you can walk from Missouri back to Baton Rouge. But,
just leave him on the tarmac like USC did with Lane Kiffin.
The good thing is for LSU's defense, they're going up against Auburn this Saturday, and Auburn's offense has been a struggle all year. So it's going to be weakness versus weakness in that standpoint, which I think LSU should capitalize on that. Lastly, guys, we're not just a football show here. We will talk about the Atlanta Braves, and the playoffs are here. NLDS, they played the Phillies, and the Braves lose 3-0. There was more than one inning where they left players in scoring position. Man, this was the best offense in baseball. I mean, no one hit home runs like this team. I mean, all the stars, man, they get beat 3-0. I mean, this game was not good for Atlanta, and I think it's got a lot of Atlanta fans just like not upset, but like scratching their heads. Like, is this going to be like a reverse from the past with this team being great in regular season, but then falling apart? I say, we record. This is a Monday morning podcast tonight at 5:00 Central Time. They play game 2. They've got to win game 2. They cannot go back to Philadelphia down 0-2.
No, definitely not. And look, growing up, in Southeast Alabama, obviously the Braves are like our, home team here. And it really does seem like you had the best team in baseball all throughout the regular season just to put up that type of performance against the Phillies. But on the other side of that, the Phillies were in the World Series last year. So before, all the Braves fans are like, yeah, the team's not playing that great. This is a Phillies team that won the National League last year, made it all the way to the World Series. So I think the Braves will get it together, but the Phillies in the postseason is probably going to be the Braves' kryptonite the rest of the way. If they can get past the Phillies, though, I think they'll go to the World Series. But you're not going to do it leaving runners on base and losing 3-0 like that.
Yeah, Ronald Acuna had no hits. Albies had one hit, but nothing else here. Ozuna, 0 hits. So I mean, you got like a lot of their stars. Pilar, 0 hits. I mean, you got to, like I said, you got to do better than that. Especially, like again I said, this is a team what they did in regular season. I mean, you expecting them to like just go bombs away? No, it's the playoffs, and pitching is where it's at. But still, and this game was 1-0 for most of the game. The Phillies got those last 2 runs on the back half of the game, so we'll see. We'll see what the Braves do. This has been fun. We're gonna close it up here. Brandon, we'll do this every week. Where you tell people where to find you, but where can people find you and all the work you're doing?
Yeah, you can find me on Twitter at Heisman Eisman. You can also find me over at SoFloridaBulls.com covering the South Florida Bulls, which honestly, Philip, I'm really glad you didn't bring up the UAB-USF game from this past weekend because that was atrocious. But yeah, you can find me there and over at the 6th Year podcast. I would say every week on Facebook Live, but it's been like a whole month and a half since I've done one. So I'm not even going to say that it's every week. It's just every once in a while. You can find me there.
All right, guys. And you can find me on social media at PJordanSEC. Podcast available at WiregrassDailyNews.com. Wherever you get your podcast or on Apple Podcasts, please follow, rate, and review. Leave a review. I will read it on a future edition of the show. And if you leave just 4 stars, you are a straight-up hater. And you can also email me at sports.philipjordan@gmail.com. Be back Wednesday. We're going to have some fun on Wednesday. But until next time, bye-bye.
Thank you for tuning in to today's Wiregrass Daily News Sports. Make sure to tune back in tomorrow for more of the sports you love in the Wiregrass. Check out the podcast at wiregrassdailynews.com or wherever you get your podcasts. Continue the conversation and connect with Philip on social media at PJordanSEC.